welcome to episode 15 on the Let's Talk Wellness podcast. The vision of this podcast is to empower you with knowledge on holistic wellness and self-care. My name is Shalini. I'm a corporate tech professional, a wellness coach. Today, I'm very excited to have Coach Karmin Simone join us. Karmin is a compassionate woman who connects with adult women, military women, veterans, and fathers of adult daughters to transform relationships. Her company, Healing ForAbundant Living, uses a unique neuroplastic and multigenerational healing framework. Karmin is a proud mom of two, one bonus son, and a loving grandmother of three. A licensed independent clinical social worker with a supervisor designation, a retired government social worker, retired major, Army Reserves, certified life coach, TEDx speaker, lead intercessor with Kingdom's Make Ministries International, elder at New Dimension Worship Center, and a board member of Crossed Bridges. Welcome, Karmin.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a mouthful.
I know.
Thank you
I was
for
like, oh my
having
God,
me.
you have a lot. You have a lot that I can talk about. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's
Which
a
part
pleasure.
of the country are you calling from?
I am actually in the United States and I live in the state of Maryland.
Awesome. Perfect. Actually, my daughter lives pretty close. She's in Virginia.
Yeah, not too far at all.
Yes. Great. So today's topic, are you living a life filled with abundance? That's what we're going to all explore and learn more with Karmin. So, Karmin, tell us a bit about your journey as a life coach and specifically abundant living coach. And how
Yeah,
did you get there?
it's definitely, I guess, some of the memoirs of my life kind of intertwined in that bio. But I've always, from a young child, been the type of individual who wanted a healthy family. I didn't always know what that word was or what it was going to look like. But just inside, somewhere deep down, I just wanted a healthy family. I wanted, the households that I saw on television, a mom, a dad. It's really different for every individual. There's a universal theme, to have plentifulness, to have joyfulness, to have achieved and obtained success. But what success to me is not what success to you.
True.
And it really, as I would define it, is being able to identify that thing or those things that bring value to your life, that have you at a place emotionally and psychologically where you feel that you are doing well and that your life is beginning to be filled, or it is filled with those things that you have always desired. You may not have yet have it completely filled,
Yeah.
but at least you can say I'm on the right track and I feel good about the life that I'm living. Because many times, as you're sharing, we have this ideal based on the world standards, based on social media, and based on so many things that we're trying to actually achieve some things that are in line with what other people are doing or what other people say.
Yep.
But when we really boil it back down to what's in your heart, what is it that you really want to have in your life? And oftentimes, we all need to have some finances, yes.
Yes.
We all
Absolutely.
need to have, some healthy relationships,
Yeah.
because we're not meant to live in isolation. But generally, the one theme is that self-fulfillment.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. No, you hit the nail. I think it's really finding your purpose, finding what makes you happy, and I think what makes you tick, right? Because at the end of the day, I feel like, when you go to bed, I mean, there's this saying, in kind of the Indian culture, which is, even when you have like a very small meal, right? Person who's, homeless or begging, but when they have even the smallest of meals, but they actually relish it, they enjoy it, and you
Hmm.
go to bed feeling so satisfied. It's the
Yes.
smallest thing which most people take for granted, but when you just feel that and you're just happy, truly,
Hmm.
I mean, to me, I think just trying to connect back to what you just talked about, I think that's what it really is. What is
I
it
love that. Yeah,
that
I love that
fulfills you?
analogy. Yeah, because we think about, and we could probably both name people, people
Yeah.
that have been rich and famous.
Yep.
And with all their wealth and all their fame, for many of them, there was still something missing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that something missing for some led them to take their own lives.
Hmm.
That something missing for some led them to engage in behaviors and activities that they may not have if they had really understood what
Hmm.
was missing in their life and not trying to fill it with things that really could never be sufficient.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we understand ourselves at the very core of who we
Yep.
are, what our core values are, what our belief systems are, how we function, how we communicate, how our personalities are developed. And so there's a lot of different components, and someone might say, well, how do you do all that in coaching? Well, we do it over time, right?
Exactly, right? It's not
Not
like,
just one
oh,
session.
overnight. Yep.
Right. But the very beginning of that, what makes it unique is tailoring it for that individual person.
Yeah.
There are some commonalities, some things that, as you do, we're going to discuss in a session. But when you can help people really see the big picture and you can help them really see themselves in the future, living the life that they've always desired to live, aside from first all those material things,
Yep.
because those things can be replaced and they can be lost. But when you have all of those things removed and you really take time to boil it down and drill down to who you really are at your core, then
Yeah.
it makes attaining those things much easier.
Yep. Totally. Yes. Oh, wow. This is so powerful. Okay. I'm going to take a little, digression here. And
Sure.
I wanted to talk a bit about, you have a coaching session for clients to talk about mother-daughter bond and strengthen that, right? You call it the unbreakable bond coaching group session. So can you help just, the audience understand why is this important for you and why would you want to do this, as a separate.
Maybe a couple of siblings, maybe not.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
With there being joy and laughter and fun and taking vacations and, all those kinds of things that you see on television. And so that was not my family. My family was pretty much the opposite of that. Due to a lot of unhealed things within my parents and just the other adults within my family, what I saw and what I was used to was just a lot of disruption and a lot of chaos. And so, what it did for me was, as for all of us, pretty much, you are kind of picture of the family you grew up with and then from, and you move forth in life with that portrait of yourself, the reflection of your family. And so that was me. And so I was my mother's only child. My father had three other children by another woman. And so that kind of gives you an idea that my family was somewhat split.
Yep.
And so as I grew up, what I began to find is that there were a lot of different types of families, but not the kind of family that I really wanted in my heart. And so I thought that when I grew up and got married, I'd be able to create that type of family. But what I found out was I could only create the kind of family that I was familiar with. And there were a lot of things deep down inside of me that I had not really dealt with well. Some things I kind of chipped away at a little bit with therapy and just my own exposure to those psychological, sociological things through college as I studied social work, but not deep enough to really bring up some healing. And so, as most of us do, when I got married, my husband and I had come from different types of families as well. And so we pulled all of those things together. And as we began to have children, we have two adult children now. Our daughter's 33 and our son's 27. We created the kind of family and blended together the families that we came from. And so it still wasn't the healthiest of families. It wasn't, and I guess my children would have to chime in. But from my perspective as the wife and the mother, it wasn't an awful family, but there was some dysfunction, as there are in many
Of
families.
course.
And so until I was really able to be honest with myself and really confront the things head on that I needed to confront, then I became more aware of what a healthy family really was and what it took to have a healthy family. And that's when I started leaning into this theme of abundance. You know, what's abundant for me? What's satisfying for me? And how can I have those things in my life? And I'm still working on them. Because as we go through different seasons of our life, situations and circumstances, things change, and we have to kind of revamp or redesign, refresh some things sometimes. And I remember as a little girl, kind of keeping a diary and writing down my ideal man and my ideal family and what it was
Yeah.
going to look like. And it's somewhat like that, but not completely. And so, as a social worker, as a mother, as having been a wife, having been in the military, and worked in the field of social work for those years until I retired, I really, at this point in my life, have a better understanding, and I'm able to pursue that with more intention and with more positivity and in a healthier way.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, that's very powerful because I feel like, when you come from that place, right, where you've gone through struggles, or you've gone through, any kind of trauma, everything in life, right? We all learn so much. And I think taking that to the next level and wanting to really help people, I mean, I really admire that. So, I mean, appreciate you sharing the story and where you're coming from.
You're welcome. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
it's really a part of my heart to um, have women be at their best self, be
yeah.
that place in their life where they feel good about where they are. Doesn't mean life's going to be perfect because we don't live in a perfect world, but it definitely brings a different viewpoint when you know that you've done your best, you've done all that you can do. You can look back, not in regret, not in shame, not in guilt, but you can look back over your life and say, I did well. And there's still yet some things that I can do better. And I can still reach those goals that I have. I'm very much a believer of we need to have goals and we need to know how to set achievable goals, but we need to have a vision for our life. We need to be able to see ourselves living life as the life we desire.
Absolutely. You're the CEO of your life, right? I mean, that's really what it
Exactly.
is. I mean, for each of us, and we're also unique. So, of course, we come from different, backgrounds, different perspectives, right? But I think, but the core here, though, is again going back to, the abundant living coach. So, I want
Mhm.
to just, talk a little bit about this word
Sure.
abundance
Hmm.
because, I feel like, again, each of us have a different definition, but for most people, I think when you talk about abundance, we're thinking wealth, or we're thinking titles, or we're thinking, what's the next big thing we're all running towards? I don't know actually what we're all running towards, but in this fast-paced life, I seriously think we don't just pause enough. I don't think people really think through the bigger picture. And
Absolutely.
I would love to know what, your definition of abundance would, really mean here. Service, and I know you also had a TEDx speech on this related topic.
Yeah, yeah, it's very personal for me. Like I said, I think, many things that I do are just a projection of who I am or who I was at some point in my life. And so, as you were reading the bio, I coach fathers with adult daughters, but I also coach mothers with adult daughters as well.
Sure.
Because parenting as an adult with an adult child is very different.
Yes.
And we have to continue to evolve and to grow and allow our children to evolve in their own way and grow, but still stay in a healthy relationship with them.
Yeah.
And so for me, as a young teenager, probably many people can relate to this because my mother and I had the same hormones operating. There were
Oh, it's
many
that
times
phase
where
of
we just
life, right?
clashed.
Uh-huh.
I was
Phase of
like, this
life.
lady does not understand me. She does not see me. She doesn't value my opinion.
Yep.
But as I got older and
Mm.
became a young woman and a young adult, then I started to see her in a different way.
Yeah.
I think I could see her in a lens compared to and aligned to myself as a young woman. So we weren't these adversaries anymore. We actually had to come together for our relationship's sake, as two women in this world trying to be the best that we could be in a world that doesn't always support women in the best ways.
Right.
And so from that, it helped me to be in a relationship with her much differently. Even
Wow.
as my mother aged, and the tables turned, and I
Yeah.
became her caretaker, where at one time she was mine, I
Yeah.
really could understand her positions much better. And then
Mm.
as I had a daughter and she was growing into her own self, I could see myself at those stages of development.
Yes.
And I was like, and now I understand my mother's position because I
It's
was
like full
somewhat in the
cycle.
same shoes at that point, right?
Yeah.
And I could see, even sometimes in my daughter's eyes, what I was thinking at that age.
Mm. Yes, exactly.
And so it helped me to be a little better mother than I probably would have been,
Mm.
without being able to have those perspectives and understanding and insight. So that mother daughter relationship is very near and dear to my heart. My mother's no longer living, she passed away in 2011. And so I often reflect back on things that she said, things that she did as my daughter is getting older. And now my daughter has a daughter. And
Oh,
so there's generational aspects there now.
yes.
Her daughter is 2, and I watch her relationship with her daughter. And so last February, for whatever reason, maybe it was Valentine's Day, I don't know. In February is also my grandmother's birthday month. And so I just reflected a lot on these relationships, women's relationships, and mother and daughter relationships. And I really felt like I needed to lean into those more and be available to provide some things for other mothers that may have some challenges with their daughters, or daughters having challenges with their mothers, as two adult women. And as you said, the TED Talk that I was honored to do was about mother daughter relationships and things that we may not be aware of. The healthier your relationship is with your mother, the healthier you are as an individual, medically, emotionally, and psychologically, and
Yeah.
spiritually as well.
That's so powerful. I'm just reflecting on some of those moments as a parent. I mean, I have two girls, and
Mm.
I definitely know what that feels like because. I mean, as a teenager, yes, I had my rough moments. I'm sure, I troubled my mom quite a bit. And now when I go through the same, right, with my girls, and I get the same feedback for a moment, I'm just thinking, oh boy, was I really this bad? Or was I any better? And then I would ask my mom, I was like, okay, did I really do this? She said, oh yeah, you did this. So you know what? Life comes full circle, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I can totally relate to kind of what you're talking about. But hey, you know what? That I think we all have to go through this. So it is obviously very beneficial for individuals who are definitely early in their parenting journey to,
Absolutely.
really just give themselves that space and grace because
Mhm.
it's not easy. And, I know just being with two young kids, it was tough. And, now, of course, I can talk about it because they're much older and they're, kind of on their own. Of course, not as older as your kids, right? But at least they're much older. And now I can actually tell the other parents who have way younger kids and they're going through
Yeah,
very stressful times, right? And so you can kind of step back and say, hey, you know what? This time goes too fast. So just pause.
it does. Yeah,
Yes,
it truly does. And that's part of that visioning. I know when you're in the thick of things, it's hard to see
exactly.
beyond that. But when I can help, women, men see, okay, yeah, this is the way it is right now. But
Yeah,
if we put these things in place and you
yeah,
stick to it, this is how it could be in the future.
exactly.
And sometimes, we are our own independent individuals.
Hmm.
And sometimes you can have the best of environments. You can be the best of parents, but children are still going to make their own choices.
Of course.
But when you, again, as I said before, when you can look back and say, I did the best that I could. then that gives you peace of mind.
Exactly. A life with no regrets. I know you mentioned this before as well, but like at
Yeah,
least trying to, right? Again, we're all human, so I'm sure there are things we all, feel, oh my gosh, maybe I could have done that a little better. But
absolutely.
to
And
a
there's
certain
things we're going to
percent.
miss, right? We're not perfect
Yes.
people.
Exactly. I think we're all work in progress. That's literally how I think about it, right? So
Yeah.
awesome. All right. And on your, website, and I know even reading your bio, right? I talked about this unique and transformative neuroplastic and multi-generational healing framework that you use with clients. Can you just help us understand a little more about what that means?
Yeah, sure. It's a part of that bonding of individuals in a relationship. Oftentimes we get stuck in the weeds about things that are very important to us, but we have not articulated them sometimes in a way that's communicated to the other individual. I'm not sharing this with you because it's your fault. I'm sharing this with you because it's how I feel. And this is what I need. And so that bond that I work on creating with mothers and their daughters and fathers and their daughters, and just individuals that are in a relationship that are having some challenges, or individuals that want to work on some things themselves. And so one of the things we have to do is understand how our brains work.
Yeah.
And so that's that neuroplastic part. Our brains are created and wired to be retrained. And many times we don't know that. What we settle for is it's always going to be this way.
Yeah.
And that's not true. It could always be that way, but it could also change and not be that way. But it takes some work.
Yeah.
And so some of the things we have to do is give ourselves space and time to work on our thoughts, to work on how we communicate, to work on how our thoughts line up with our feelings, and then what comes after that, which is how we
Hmm.
communicate or how we behave, our actions.
Yeah.
And once individuals get a good understanding of that, then they're more open to making the changes because they understand the mechanics behind it, so to speak,
Yeah.
and then what they have to look forward to as they align their goals with their thoughts, with their desires, with who they are in their core, and continue to move forward and work on those. And it really doesn't take a long time. And for most people, that's like, we can do this like over 3, 4 months. I'm like,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
So no, you don't. Therapy is good, and I've been a therapist. I've done clinical work, and it has its place and time for certain types of situations, but it doesn't have to be that way for everybody. So coaching is good, counseling is good, but you have to know the difference between the two and what's the best fit for you.
Got it.
And as a clinician, the bonus that people receive is I'm going to intertwine a little bit of that social
Yeah.
work theology and theories in there, um, unbeknownst to the individual.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, that's it's really a great kind of segue, I think, into one of my other questions, which was, you focus a lot on helping women and they develop, a healthy sense of just self and rewire unhealthy thoughts, negative mindsets. I mean, you touched a bit just even from healing, right? Which is from past traumas or situations, whatever we go through in life, and rewrite, the positives. And so I guess going back to our topic really, which is abundance and how do you even live a life like that, right? How do you do this? Meaning even in your coaching sessions, I mean, are there specific techniques? Do you tell them, just rewiring? How does that all work or come together?
Yeah, it's sort of taking a quick backwards journey. So once the individual identifies what they want to work on, right? I have them look at 3 different areas. What are the top 3 areas in your life that if they could be different tomorrow, you would want them changed? And then they'll give me those. And then we talk about those 3 areas again. So out of those three, what's the primary area? And then we identify that. And then as we have conversation about some other questions that I involve them in, getting them to think about how they got to this point, why that's important to them, what is the outcome that they want. Many times, what's at the core is something that they've connected to from their past. And so we spend a little bit of time in a backwards journey looking at when did this first come up for you. So let's say it's finances. I really want to have more money in my bank account, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to talk about spending habits. We're going to talk about some other things. We're going to talk about, debt consolidation and various things. But when we start to peel the onion and take those layers off and we look back at when was money first important to you, oftentimes it wasn't yesterday. It wasn't last year. It was many years ago, and it was connected to something that occurred in that person's life. It could have been that they grew up with not a lot of access to monies, and they made a decision, I'm never going to live like this as an adult.
Yeah.
So as we explore that, then they can make the connection with, why is it so important to me now? And so we do some other kinds of things. Sure. But all of that is to get the person to look at how they're thinking and how they're feeling about whatever that is that's really important to them, and what's the value for them related to that. And so we get a good understanding of that. And then we're going to talk about not only their relationships, whether they're in a committed relationship or not, how that's impacting their relationship, but their relationship to that priority and how they're taking care of it, how they're attending to it. So there's a lot of different components, but it's all to help them bring things together to bridge a gap so that they're very clear on what their priority is and why they've set that as a goal. And sometimes the initial area that they voice concern about is really not their primary area.
Got it. So there's basically just the layers of exploration is how I want to think about it, right? Because there's just so much discovery. And I'm sure through this process and the questions that you ask, I'm sure individuals go through their own self-discovery, right? Because there are a lot of things that just don't come out the first time. But then, like you said, keep peeling it. And then you kind of get to the core of, where really the root cause of the problem even starts.
And it like I said, it doesn't take a long amount of time. Usually within 1 to 2 sessions, we can get down to the core of what really the issue is. And then there's some homework that I give as well, so that between sessions, they don't lose traction. They don't lose momentum. But then sometimes there's some tearful sessions.
Of course.
Because there's some things, as I said, in my own life, in other people's lives, we haven't talked about in a long time. Or we've covered with other things to the point that on the surface of our minds, we don't even remember it. We haven't even thought about it. And so once those things come up again, then there's emotions attached to it. But it's important to bring those things up to the surface and allow those feelings and emotions to come out, because sometimes unconsciously there's things attached to those feelings and emotions that are hindering us from moving forward because they're painful or they were traumatic in some way.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. I know, we can continue to keep talking about this topic, but I know we're here almost at time. So I think I want to ask you one question. I mean, I love you have that right behind you, which is simple abundance. So any practical, tips or strategies that you would want to just leave the audience with, just, in their daily lives? What can they do? Maybe just 2 or 3 things comes to your mind.
Yeah, it's take each day one day at a time and prioritize what is most important for that day. We live in a world of multitasking.
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
Some of us are good at it and some of us are not so good.
Yep.
But if you take it one day at a time, then those days turn into weeks, and those weeks turn into months, and those months turn into years. I like this thought of 1%. If you can do something very well, and it's 1% of the other things that you had to do, then you've had some success that day. You've achieved something that day. It may be cleaning the kitchen. It might be getting the clothes washed. It might be balancing your checkbook. It might be the first conversation you've had with someone very close to you where you've opened up and really told them how you feel about some things. But pick one thing each day. Yes, there's many things we have to do. And those other things may have to be done over time, a couple of days. But if you can get one thing done and do it well every day, then that gives you the motivation to keep going. And it works for persons that are struggling with anxiety. It works for persons that are struggling with depression, whatever it is, even addictions. Because what then you have is a benchmark. You have a stake in the ground where you can say, I did that. And if I did that, I can do the next thing. The other thing I would say is to build confidence in yourself. Many times what hinders us from moving forward is we don't have the confidence that we can get it done. And if you do that one thing, you can reflect on that and say, I am able to do certain things. So I would say those two things are important. And the third thing is not to take what other people say to
Love it.
heart. And that's hard. It's
That's true.
hard, particularly when there are people you care about and they care about you.
Mm,
But hear what they say and then filter it through, is that really true about you? Because oftentimes people see us in a particular light
yep.
through
Yep.
certain lenses,
Hmm.
and it might line up with how we see ourselves, and it may not. But the person that is best at knowing you is you. So
Yep.
try to always keep how you see yourself first and foremost.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for taking this time
You're
today. And
welcome. Thank you again for having me.
absolutely. And before we conclude, do you want to share your social media channel or website or how individuals can reach out to you for more?
Yeah, hopefully it's pretty easy these days. You just put a name in and search. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. Coach K, the letter K, Karmin Simone. My website is www dot the letter I, the letter H, the number 4, the letter A, the letter L.com. And that stands for Inner Healing for Abundant Living. So any one of those ways, you can friend request me, connect with me on Instagram, and I'm doing some posts, and you'll see me here and there, and sharing different things. I have a free offer, a strategic plan for abundant living. So if you go on my website, you'll be able to find it there. Connect with me on any one of those social media platforms and just say, I want that abundant living guide, and I'll get it out to you.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today, Carmen. I learned a ton
You're
about,
welcome.
how to even try living a life filled with abundance. And I'm sure the audience learned quite a bit today just to even pause, think about life, and not just go through this rat race and then realize 10 years from now, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
just start
Yeah,
somewhere
we want to
early.
do that.
Yes, absolutely. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.